We ask for the patience and cooperation of the public. The City Finance Department is now open to the public Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. till noon and 1 p.m. till 3 p.m., and it's accepting utility payments, property tax payments, and to process the homeowner grant application. Other city departments are accessible by appointment only, and residents are encouraged to access services electronically on the city's website. There are a number of new regulations that have been put in place at the Parksville Civic and Technology Center, that's here, and the public is encouraged to view these changes on the city's website before visiting. Please follow staff instructions and directional signage to ensure safety protocols are in place. Washrooms are closed to the public. Please do not loiter in the building, and when exiting the building, please use the south door near the cenotaph, so this one right out here. Please use the hand sanitizer, and by way of a reminder, you must not be here if you are feeling unwell. Cover your cough or sneeze, and please adhere to the physical distancing guidelines. This evening we have a development variance permit on the agenda. We're going to put a 2-minute limit on each speaker and ask if your point has been made, please do not repeat it again. Those wishing to speak regarding the development variance permit will be asked to line up over on this side in accordance with physical distancing, and I will call upon each speaker to step up to the microphone at the appropriate time. Speakers, please do not touch the microphone at any time. Please be mindful of your time, and if others are waiting to speak. Once you have addressed council, you must exit the council chambers according to the one-way traffic flow, and if space permits, those who have addressed council may return to the chambers and be seated to listen to the remaining speakers and council discussion. If space is not available, you will be asked to leave the facility. Finally, before we begin, I'd like to recognize that former Mayor Mark Lefebvre is currently awaiting heart surgery. He's in our thoughts, and we wish him well and the very best for his surgery and speedy recovery. Finally, before we begin, same thing over again. Thank you. So, let's begin with the conversation. Are you the first person in line?
Yes, I guess I am.
Yeah, I need your name and your address, please.
My name is Bruce Gilbert. I live in 209, 335 Hirst Avenue West.
Okay. There you go.
Don't touch the mic. Watch out for the sign.
Well, that's so the people at home can get to hear you.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm just going to speak to the petition that was put forth.
Please.
And this petition evolved from hearing complaints when the public notice came out. There were many objections from encroaching on the street, building design, what type of people the development would attract, loss of willow tree, parking, didn't understand the notice, didn't understand how to object, and wanting it just to remain a green space. So I took it upon myself to focus the petition on the DVP and the 3 of the 4 proposed variances, and that would be most important to keeping the open space and the streetscape on Hirst Avenue. If before COVID-19, there would probably be 20 to 30 people at this meeting. That's how much interest is generated. So I'd like you to understand that that petition does really represent 24 homeowners, not renters, and their feelings towards this development. And I think that's going to do it. You've got all the written information that I've sent out, and I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Thank you very much. We're going to ask you just to hold for a second on this because I have just been corrected here for forgetting to go through the approvals of the minutes and that. So it'll just take us about 20 seconds, all right? So we won't go away. Thank you very much. All right, I need a consent agenda approval. So somebody to move and second the recommendations as they're in the agenda. Moved by Councillor Fraze, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Correspondence, we have 6 pieces of correspondence for information. All of them are to do with 352 Hirst Avenue West. I need a mover and a seconder to receive this, these pieces of correspondence, please. Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion on any of the correspondence? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Now we can go back. Sorry for the delay. Please come forward. Your name and your address, please.
My name's Lisa Anderson. I live at 360 Hirst Avenue, next door to the empty lot.
Thank you.
I own it. I'm not opposed to what's happening except for what I put on the petition. I don't think it should be brought forward so far. I've moved over from the mainland to kind of have a little bit more of a neighborhood feel. I knew when I bought that there was development for up to 10 townhomes, so 12 seems excessive. The parking was going to be a big problem. I've been here 3 years and it's a problem. There's people there all day parked, so it's packing on from the townhomes. So the other issues, I know development's going to happen. So basically, I like the one-story idea. I think that's very nice because I don't mind that there's smaller units, but I just think 12 is too many on such a small spot and a nice neighborhood, and I don't think it should be pushed so far forward in the curbs on the front sidewalk as I petitioned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to the subject? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Russell, could you please give us the background on the issue regarding this famous piece of property?
Certainly, if I may, Your Worship. Since this application originally appeared to council, notice has been provided twice with respect to the variance application to provide members of the public an opportunity to provide comment for council's consideration. This application is for a townhouse development with 12 residences. There's a requested parking relaxation from 1.5 to 1.2 parking spaces. A professional traffic report was included with the submission that indicates with this particular development that 1 parking space would be sufficient. With respect to the fence relaxations, I want to clarify that the actual height of the fence itself along Hirst Avenue is proposed to be 1.2 meters. There are trellises that have like entry gates. Those are what are proposed to have the higher height of 3 meters, the entry gate trellises, but the main fence itself is at 1.2 meters. Another point of clarification is the building is being requested to be 4.5 meters from the front property line. There are privacy screens that require a variance to go into the side yard areas because that area also is a usable open space potentially for children to play in, but it needs to be noted that the front yard actually does not qualify as an area for usable open space, so no variance is required for those screens within the front yard area. The recommendation is as per the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor Chandler, seconded by Councillor Greer. Mrs. Weeks, has there been any correspondence received, any further correspondence received? Okay, thank you. Discussion. Anybody want to start the discussion off? Councillor Fraz, and then Councillor Chandler.
Are all of these recommendations being moved together, or are we taking them individually?
Well, they were moved all together, but you can break them out if you wish.
Maybe we can see some discussion comes out of it, and then if they need to be broken out, we can.
Okay. I'm not sure you can do that. I think what you have to do is either decide at the beginning of the conversation or, so if you've got
Well-
one that you want to take out, speak now.
I think they should be reviewed individually
Okay.
because they are such a variety there, but, so I think they should be broken down.
All right, so you're moving that so we're on number 1 then, is what you're saying. I need a seconder for number 1. Are you seconding number 1, Councillor Patterson? Okay, then we'll have the discussion on number 1. I'm looking for a discussion on number 1. Do we have to vote? We don't vote on each one. We call it? Okay. All right, I'm going to call the vote on this one. Approve, those in favor of recommendation number 1. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed. All right, so we've got Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Wilson that are opposed to number 1. All right, point number 2, and this pertains to the 4 points that are added there, 2A, B, C, D, and D. So I need a mover and a seconder for point number 2. Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Fraz. Discussion? Pretty quiet. Councillor Chandler, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I go by that area a lot. That's my way home from my warehouse, and I go by that property quite a bit. I have a friend that lives right in that area as well. So I know that parking can be a challenge at times, but I often wonder, how many of the parking stalls that are within some of the complexes there locally have something in them that is just sitting there and the second car is out front for that reason. There's a potential of that. So I'm not suggesting that that's the case in every scenario, but it always sends a signal sometimes when you hear about parking issues. They always seem to resolve themselves, and I don't really see that as a big issue, that people park and they find these spots. So I know that's one of the biggest challenges here. And I think in today's climate and with the price point of those homes, I don't think we're going to see, with the size of the homes too, I don't think we're going to see more than 1 vehicle per home personally. But again, I may be wrong on that, but that's my feeling. So
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm seeking clarification here. We discussed initially, and we voted on section number 2, section 104. Is that not correct, that we just had to vote on?
We voted on section 1, was the one we just voted on prior to this? Point number 1? Recommendation number 1, and we're now in the discussions for number 2,
Right.
which is broken into 4 parts.
Okay, so that's my clarification is needed. A, B, C, and D type of thing is not being considered separately. There's all being considered as one.
We can break them out even further if you so desire on that.
It was all one section, that's right.
Yeah. It's up to you. If you want to break them
Are you
out,
in agreement with that?
Councillor
Yeah.
O'Brien.
I feel that it's important that we break out A, B, C, and D. Just because I was listening to Councillor Chandler here, and he was talking about the parking, I thought, oh, well, we skipped a couple steps, and I just wanted to
All right.
have the discussion on each one. I think it's important. If I may,
I need somebody to move point 2A then. Councillor Fraz, seconded by Councillor Patterson. And was that your point that you wanted to make, Councillor
Yes.
O'Brien? Councillor
Grant.
Patterson, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Your Worship. So Section 104, this is the first part of 2A of 4 items, and that from 6.1 meters to 3.4 meters. And I think that the director clarified this a little bit in regards to the lattice. Would that be a proper terminology, or I'm not sure. So I just want a little bit more clarification, please, and then I've got 3 more questions in regards as we go down
All right.
the
but
list.
On 2A.
2A is the patio privacy screens.
Okay. Explain what the variance is, if you would, again, just so everybody's clear.
Certainly, if I may, Your Worship.
You could, yeah, please, if you would.
If Mayor Worship, yes. 2A is a relaxation to allow the privacy screens on the side lot lines to encroach into basically the play area. So rather than being like an open grass play area along the sides of the building, this would allow for the privacy screens to encroach for the individual patios of those units.
If I may just interject for 1 second, Director. So this is on the side yard setback that we're talking about? No, I understand that part, but it's the side yard setback is what we're
If
talking
in
about.
Mayor Worship, yes, the side yard,
Up to the patio,
the edge of the patio.
edge of the patio.
Yes,
Okay,
Your
and
Worship.
that's what you're counting on, all
Yeah.
right. To the building, sorry, keep going, don't.
Yeah, I mean, to clarify, if they had a room somewhere else on the property to provide a usable open space area, they wouldn't actually need a relaxation. It's because that particular area is the one area that's got an uninterrupted grass play surface potentially for kids. And so this allows for an encroachment into that area to basically provide privacy for those patios.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other discussion on this? Councillor O'Brien?
If I may, Your Worship, thank you. I have been going over the correspondence received on this particular issue, and I'm happy that we are discussing it separately, and that was good clarification. I noticed that there have been a number of objections to this particular privacy screening, section 104. So this is from the neighborhood permits. I just want to put out that this particular section is been opposed by a number of individuals here. So
All right.
just pointing that out.
Thank you. Pardon me?
Thanks. I realize that as we stumble through this, we're accommodating breaking these all down, which is a little bit more cumbersome, and that we've already pushed it back another meeting too. But I just wanted to express that I think it's important the way that we do this, so that we run through a process that is very transparent for the public to be involved in, so that they get a chance to understand what we are doing to consider this. And it's also a good learning opportunity for myself as well to learn of the different bylaws and all these nuances. As you can see, that this kind of project, it has things like these privacy screens, which I think will be beneficial to the individuals who will live in the building. When I see the drawings that they have in place there, I think it's a good idea of what they're having. What I struggle with when we have a petition that has a couple names saying they're objecting to it, I don't quite know if I understand why they're objecting to privacy screens, or if maybe they didn't understand clearly what that variance particularly was, whereas like a parking reduction is a lot more obvious as to what the variance is being asked for. So my opinion on this one with the privacy screens is it's something that I'm in favor of because I see it being beneficial and it being on the side lot lines. So this one I'm going to be supporting.
Any other comments, conversation? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor O'Brien? Councillor Wilson? Yes, all right, and Councillor Wilson is opposed. All right, let's go to Section B, that the minimum building setback from the front lot line be reduced from 6 meters to 4.5 to facilitate the siting of the townhouse building. So the building is moving forward on this one, just by 1.5 meters. Am I, okay. I need a mover and a seconder for this. Moved by Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor Greer. Discussion? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship. It would appear to me that this particular section here would be to reduce the setbacks anyways from the front lot lines. I would assume that this is to accommodate the extra units anyways to 12 units, and otherwise it's going to be infringing on that space, and so it appears that the intent of this is just to get in one more unit into this. I understand what I've heard anyways and talked to the neighbors in the area, that perhaps 10 would be more satisfactory to this, and I'm not sure that it's really necessary to vary the setbacks just to allow the combination for one more unit. So I will not be supporting this.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Chandler?
Thank you, Worship. I guess my big problem with it is we've been looking for this sort of price point for housing for quite some time in the area. You know, I know there's always a concern that, and I'd heard in the original comments of the first gentleman up that there was a concern over the type of people that would be renting these places or purchasing these places. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to see some people that are going to be moving out of some larger accommodations that have downsized or are downsizing, and potentially younger students that are in the area, potentially they're going to be moving into this type of operation. And I think with the price the way it is, I really I think the problem being is if we go down to the 10 units, we're going to impact that end price result, and it's going to drive it up higher and put it out of reach for some people that might have just been on the border to be able to buy their first place. So that was one of my biggest concerns too as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other point?
Yes.
Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern about having the extra unit townhouse unit coming forward, will actually be adjacent to the front yard of adjacent to the front yard of the adjacent house, if that makes any sense. And I guess the whole idea of having an OCP is that it's nice to have, yes, Councillor Chandler, it's nice to have affordable housing units, and I think the size are great. That's not the problem. I think that we really should adhere to our OCP and our setback, and whether it's going to fit in the neighborhood, which is really what's important here. Maybe those townhouse units might fit somewhere else, but it's important that we look at how it fits in this on this street and in this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Councillor O'Brien, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I do appreciate the fact that it is creating possibly more affordable housing in the area, being smaller units and so forth. And as much as I applaud that initiative for much the same reasons as Councillor Chandler has pointed out, I don't feel that it should be at the expense of the existing neighborhood. In this particular case, it just seems too much for that particular lot. The owner of the purchaser of the property bought that property understanding what the setbacks were, and then designed the buildings accordingly. So the thing is, they knew that going in what the setbacks were, and yet they bought it, and then they decided to try and change it to allow one more unit. Well, that's all well and may make the complex a little more profitable from the builder's point of view, but at the same time, I'm not sure it should be at the expense of the setbacks that has been established at the OCP. So I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll weigh in on this one for just a second, if I may. I am going to support this because the cost of this, I mean, it's a rental unit, if I'm not mistaken. If we take one unit out, what that does is that increases the rents on all the other buildings in order to offset the costs for that. For 3.5 feet that we're shy on the front yard, I'm not seeing that as being a major inconvenience for anybody from that perspective. So from my point, I don't see reducing the number of units down. I don't see changing the layout of it. I think this is acceptable from my point of view. Anyway, so we'll go from there. Anybody else? If not, we're going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, it fails. And Let's go on to D. Well, that'll change your parking requirements if that were the case, would it not? Pardon me? C, what did I say, D? I'm sorry, it's C. The parking requirements is relaxed from 1.5 to 1.2. I need a mover and a seconder on this. Moved it, second by Councillor Greer, moved by Councillor Fraz. Discussion? Councillor Patterson and Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the director again. So by reducing to 1.2 parking stalls, would that mean that there are 14 in total parking spots available with 2 visitor parking, or can you please clarify that? Thank you.
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Patterson. The relaxation will result in the provisioning of 15 parking spaces for the 12 units, so 3 additional spaces more than the number of units that could be for visitor parking. We don't actually ascribe how parking is apportioned, but that would typically be what the additional spaces would be used for.
Councillor Greer?
Thank you, Your Worship. With one less unit, what would the parking go from 1.5 to 1.4 or 3? You're only eliminating what, 1 car?
Yeah.
So basically 1 car, approximately, yeah. So it doesn't improve the parking on the street a great deal. 1 space, yeah. Good, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Fraz.
I guess I always have a bit of a problem, sorry, through your worship. Thank you, your worship. I have a bit of a problem with parking because everywhere we go, we relax parking, and there is a parking issue in the city, and Hirst is kind of busy. So I don't think we should relax the parking on this. We always have visitors, and even though there may be only 1 car per unit because they are small, you're going to have visitors who come. So I think it's a good idea to have not to relax the parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fraz?
Just have a quick 2 things. One is just a question, though. Councillor Greer, you mentioned about 11 units. This is for 12 units, though. Where was that? Was that just like a thought, or was it?
No, we have 15 units, and if we get rid of 1 unit, we're only going to be 1 less car.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. It's, just a reduction of 1 car for
1
the
car.
variance there. I agree with Councillor Wilson as far as the parking being something that's necessary to be included in developments and having as most available parking space that we need. At the same time, though, when I look at the kind of direction of the future, moving towards more pedestrian-friendly cities, I think people are very cognizant of their traffic options. And the comparison out of the study here of Victoria, they have a very different transit system than we do here. Their buses are frequently running and accessing a lot closer neighborhoods together, which I don't think we see here. But that being said, I think we'll see a lot more car share programs come forward in the future, and I imagine a development like this being a perfect one where if they had car share rolled into it, then you don't even think you need 1 car per unit to be able to function properly. I think I could get by here without a vehicle if I rolled that cost into getting a taxi when I needed to go somewhere, if I was staying locally, going to any appointments that you needed at the health center, so on. So I can see it being of 2 minds of this, of 1, the necessity now, but also 2, that in the future, the parking I don't think is going to be as big of a concern as we start to come up with better traffic solutions. So I'm okay with this variance, the way that they're asking for it, being that it's just one car reduction, but I think it does bring up a interesting topic for future developments, that perhaps car shares is a way that they could add value in them as well, so.
If I may, Your Worship, I just want to make one point of clarification.
Yes, please.
The 1.36 number that I mentioned was with respect to the change in the parking ratio. So the parking ratio per unit, with the elimination of one unit but providing the same number of parking spaces, would provide a parking ratio of 1.36. However, if we were to look at the number of units, so if we were to provide, if there was like 12 units at 15, its short is really essentially, like if we have 12 times the 1.5 normal standard would be 18 parking spaces, minus the 15 that are provided would be 3 parking spaces. That's basically what the variance is for the current proposal. If we were to take the if one residential unit disappeared, then we'd be at a requirement of 11 times 1.5, which would be 16.5, which would round up to 17. And in this case, 15 spaces would be proposed, so that's a difference of 2. So I apologize for the lack of clarity.
Okay, thanks for bringing it up. So in this case, though, we're talking about three spaces then, is what this is asking for at 1.2. It's a reduction of 3 spaces, yeah. And with that being said as well, like when I hear the comments about the parking on the streets being full, this came up in discussion before, and that's exactly what the on-street parking is designed for, so that cars can park in the street. So whether it's going to be used by these residents or the neighboring residents, I think it's fair for any residents in the street to be using their on-street parking. It's the same way in my neighborhood. My neighbors, if they have friends over, they're using the on-street parking, and if I have friends over, I'm using my on-street parking. So again, this is one that I think is a good topic of discussion, and maybe it's bigger impacts when we have larger buildings, but in this case, it's one I do support.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. Regarding this, I just have a question, if I may, Your Worship, through the Director of Planning to Blaine. Is there any provision for guest parking on this entire property?
If I may, Your Worship, the parking study that did a detailed analysis of it determined that 1 parking space would be required per residence. They indicated that was a conservative estimate on what the parking demand would be for the site. So based on their detailed review, that would mean that actually 5 of the parking spaces would be deemed to be surplus for the development.
If I could ask you,
Back to you, Councillor O'Brien, after.
to the Director of Planning there too, that brings up a thought for me then too. Are these parking spots, are they assigned per unit or are they open to anybody? And the reason why I ask is because if they find that it's a reduction overall versus an assigned spot, are they going to be able to share them?
If I may, Worship, the city doesn't partake in the allocation of parking spaces, so how they're apportioned throughout the development is at the discretion of the property owner or the developer.
Okay, because to me, that makes a difference. Like, for example, my neighbor can't park in my driveway, so if they don't have a car, that's, or if I don't have a car, it doesn't make my parking more available to them. So, okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. As a follow-up to that, and that pretty well speaks to what I was referring to as well. With the extra parking spots that would be allocated, then there's no guarantee that they would be for guests and so forth. In fact, what I observe in happening in developments like this, quite often it would be the owners themselves will use those additional parking spots for a motorcycle or even a trailer or RV or something like that, ends up being on those spots, and so there really doesn't seem to be any extra parking spots in that area. They seem to get eaten up really quickly. My other point is I walked through the area on last Friday anyways and checking in it, and I was amazed at the amount of parking that was already there on the street. The neighbors that are in the area have a better idea of what's already going on with that, a far better idea than us. And I don't feel it's really us to hope that the social transportation planning could be included in Iowa. I hope that it went through the entire city. But hopes and dreams are sometimes left at the side of the road. But the thing is that in this particular case, I believe that the neighbors have said it's going to be too much to relax this, and they're not in approval for it. So in this case, I'm saying the neighbors know better than I do, so I will not support the variance.
Anybody else? I'm going to suggest that I will support this. I believe that there's more than one per unit as far as parking goes on site. On-street parking, as Councillor Fraz has put it so well, it's for everybody. It's not for the person that lived there 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. The on-street parking is a public parking area for along the side of the road. And, you know, if we look at it from that perspective, it's a first come, first served, just like it is any place else in this city. And when we look at other areas, yeah, we do have where there's a lot of cars parked along the side of the road, but that's what it's there for. And so I think that we need to. The other part of it is that I look at this and I say, this is a different type of project. We've been beating the bushes for a number of years now looking for small units. Small units don't require, I don't see somebody that's going to live in 400 square feet is going to require parking for 2 cars for their own use. I see it for 1 car on here, which then would take it down to 11 parking spots, and the rest of the parking spots would be on a first-come, first-served basis, and then overflow on that. However, that would be out on the street or in public parking area around the corner, wherever it may go. But I don't see, if we keep putting all these restrictions on, you might as well have not even started to look for 400 square foot small housing type units. You can't do that. It's here because the cost has to be brought in at a particular price, and as soon as we start to expand this, we defeat what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to be supporting this. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have any questions left. I just have a couple comments. My daughter lives in a townhouse in Qualicum Beach. They have extra parking available for visitor parking, or they have the availability to have a charge for that extra parking spot that's available, because there are herself and her fiance in their townhouse. Granted, it is a 2-bedroom and that as well, but that's how they have options. And then there is, of course, on-street parking that the mayor has mentioned as well. I'm going to say that this is the section probably that bothered me the most in regards with this application, but as the mayor has also said, it's a 400 square foot type, it's small lots, small homes. And I'm going to say that Hirst, I only live 2 blocks away from this property, so I understand and know the traffic's schedule and everything really well. I will say that the one positive thing is that Hirst is to higher standards, and that has a better width and laneway and sidewalk and everything. That would probably change some of my opinion and that if it did not. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Wilson. Thank you. Now we're into D, the fence height requirement for townhouse to be relaxed to 2 meters, from 2 meters to 3 meters for the fence trellises located approximately at the front lot line. So again, just before we get into this, the fence itself is 1.2 meters high. This is just the trellis or the opening doorway to get into the properties. It's not the fence itself that we're speaking to. So I need a mover and a seconder for D. Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Even with my glasses on, I couldn't quite read some of the
Welcome to the vote.
numbers and that in regards to the requirements. So when we're talking about the trellises and per se the gateway, I didn't quite understand whether we would still have 3-meter heights and then it would drop for the entrance kind of area in with the 2 meters. So if I could have clarification that it's either a straight 2 meters height or would it differ with the entrances? Thank you.
Certainly, if I may, Your Worship. So the bylaw itself would allow for up to a 2-meter fence straight across. In this particular case, they're proposing a fence straight across that's 1.2 meters, but where they're putting entry gates into the fence, they're basically proposing, some people might, put roses on it, like those arbors that you kind of see, a trellis at the where just the gates are. That's where the additional height is being requested.
It's hard to get through a 1.2 meter trellis to get to the property.
You'd have to limbo.
Yeah.
So it's just where the gate is.
Is that clear, Councillor Patterson? Pardon me? Yeah? Would you like to go through it again? Because we can take, this is important, you need to know.
I'll attempt to do it.
Well, honestly, a visual would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
And the city will pay for the cost of the paper. Councillor O'Brien, did you have your hand up for next? Okay.
This is my really terrible kindergarten class drawing, but here would be the fence.
Bring it, you may bring it over, please.
And then where the entry gate is, there would go up. That's where, and then that's have to be coupled. This was a couple of units. So this part would be the normal part of the fence is 1.2. And then where there's this gate, and basically has like a thing, a threshold that you walk under essentially. Like an arbor. Yeah. This is my very, there's a much better one.
Okay. Pardon? Okay, so I'll put you right after Doug.
And then where there's entrance gates, this trellis work would go up a lot higher.
Sorry.
Why do you need approval for 3 meters all the way across? Why don't you just get approval for the trellis?
It is just for the trellis.
It doesn't say that.
It's just for the fence trellis. It's also for the plan that's attached.
It does say that. Okay, let's just keep going here. Just to clarify that point, what it says, 2 meters to 3 meters for fence let me find it, sorry, for fence trellises located in proximity to the front line. So it's very specific that it says for the trellises only, that it's for 3 meters, not for the rest of the fence. Okay, Councillor O'Brien, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. This clarification of the fences and the trellises is been quite interesting. I understand now that it's just at the gateways. The gateways are going to be just underneath an arbor that's going to reach the 3 meter length. And then the gate itself is going to be the same height as the rest of the fence, I would understand it to be. And that makes sense to me. So if anything, I think that this, and my opinion is that I think that this is acceptable. It is not like a huge 3-meter fence all the way in the front, which is what the OCP doesn't provide in the front yards, which is great. But in this particular case, and maybe with even with a 3-meter arbor or trellis, it might provide some relief anyways and make the aesthetically that fence a little more aesthetically pleasing from the outside looking in. So I will support this.
Councillor Frass.
Thank you. I really appreciate having the clarification on this item too, because I think it's one that can, as we see, can be easily confused as to what's being asked for here. My question to the Director of Planning is just in regards to what, if this variance were to pass and they had approval for the 3-meter for the trellis, would they be able to, after the fact, then change their mind from the 1.2 meters of the fence and gate and then go with the maximum allowed as it currently is at 2 meters to end up with a 2-meter fence with a 3-meter trellis? Or would they be bound to the applications we see as 1.2 meter fence with a 3-meter trellis?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Fraz, the development permit has a specific fence in it, and that is the fence that's approved. So it would be locked into that development permit.
Okay, so a 3-meter trellis approval would be attached to a 1.2 meter fence and couldn't be changed out for a 2-meter fence.
Not, if I may, Worship, through to Councillor Fraz, not without council approval of an amended development permit to allow for the fence plans in that development permit to be changed.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's carried. Thanks, folks. Good conversation. Point number 3 then, council development permit facilitated, I'm sorry, go ahead. 211. Please, go ahead and you can give it to, so everybody's got it.
If I may, Your Worship.
Okay, hold on, we can't, you can talk, nobody else can right now, go ahead.
If I may, Your Worship, the plan of the development permit will need to be amended based on what variances have not been granted. So they would need to change their site plan in order for the development permit to be issued. So there's 2 approaches I believe that council could take. One would be that the development permit be deferred to allow for those amendments to their site plan. In my opinion, issuance of those plans as they are currently contained in the development permit would actually grant a variance. Or council could direct staff to issue the development permit once that aspect has been satisfied. That would be the other option.
Councillor, sorry.
If I may, Your Worship, I concur with the Director of Planning that it might be the easiest route for council to approve in principle the development permit as has been discussed, and then staff can actually issue the development permit with that condition attached, and therefore it kind of expedites things. The DVP could be issued as has been discussed, and the DP would then just have to reflect the change in the setback that was not approved today.
That's really the only thing that we're dealing with is the setback. I don't, yeah, well, okay. Do we need to change the wording then, or are we all right with the wording the way it is? All right, let's get, all right. Could you give us the proper wording for it, please?
If I may, Your Worship, I would suggest that council approve issuance of the development permit subject to the amended setback, and that the Director of Planning be authorized to issue it once upon receipt of the amended plan.
Okay, moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Any discussion on that? I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I am concerned. I wanted to make a motion on this, that this be referred to the ADP. Is this the time to do that?
No, we're past that now.
How could we be past the development permit agreement here, approval?
We have a motion on the floor at this point in time, so we're past changing it. Unless the person who makes the motion agrees to it. Okay, so discussion? All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the way it is? Opposed? Councilor Grossen is opposed. Okay, and point number four, that a term for the development permit, landscaping security in the amount of $21,925 be submitted to the city prior to the commencement of land alteration or issuance of a building permit on the subject property, and so on. Moved by Councilor Greer, second by Councilor O'Brien. Discussion on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks an awful lot. Mrs. Cantor.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, this report is really just to provide an update on a long-standing project that Council directed staff to initiate just about a year ago. So Council will recall that staff were directed to prepare a bylaw to regulate the distribution of needles in the City of Parksville that are not issued as part of a prescription and not part of naloxone kits. So this has been delayed, I would say, in some respects due to the COVID pandemic. Staff have been discussing this with staff at the Ministry of Health and Island Health, and as recently as today, we had some conversations about how this is progressing. We have been told at the staff level informally that the city's bylaw will not be approved by the minister in any way. Essentially, they have said that it will be a wholesale rejection. However, that they were a little bit in limbo at the moment because the minister has not formally responded and isn't likely to respond anytime in the near future given the COVID crisis. So I just wanted to bring a report to council to give you an update that let you know that we are still working on it. It's been in the provincial process since early March. Council will recall that we did amend the bylaw based on council's direction in response to the Island Health input. But at this point, there's just a little bit of uncertainty as to when we will get formal rejection or acceptance from the minister. So if council wishes to just wait and see and leave this going through the provincial process, I would recommend option one, which is really just to receive for information. But if we wanted to take the staff at their word that we really have a very low chance of getting the bylaw approved, council could consider giving us different direction to essentially renegotiate or reconsult with the ministry to find some kind of solution that would be acceptable. Although I would say in my conversations with them, really any regulation on needles is not going to be acceptable to them. So what council may want to do is just wait for that formal response from the minister, and then if, depending on the outcome, we could ask again for a meeting in person. At this point, we have not been able to get a response from the ministry. We have been told by the medical health officer that he is not willing to meet in person on this version of the bylaw. And so in the interim, what staff are trying to do is reach out on an operational level to see if we can improve some of the services that we would be looking for citizens that regularly come across bylaw officers' desks, I guess. And we're also trying to see if they will provide any funding or support, whether it be through the ministry or through nonprofit, to assist us with the ongoing challenge we have with finding needles on a very regular basis. Recommendation is at this point just to receive.
Thank you, Councillor Greer. I appreciate that. Councillor O'Brien, go ahead. You're off first.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to the CAO for this report. As I understand it as well, to receive it, I believe is probably a best move at this particular point. In light of the fact that I know other municipalities throughout British Columbia have taken portions of our proposed bylaw and so forth and regulations, and they are trying to push that through in their own way through to the Ministry of Health as well. So they've taken portions of ours, which I think is a step in the right direction instead of being an all or nothing. So I believe that what we can do is we can maybe watch to see how that progresses as it gets through and they get their answers back by their respective health regions, which may be more forthcoming to them. And so the thing is that I think we should watch that very carefully, but I think we should let our application stay as stands and as received, and watch for portions of it being pushed through at other levels to the province.
Councillor Frass.
I just wanted to say that I'm very disappointed to hear that there haven't been getting any response from them. And I think that this also goes well beyond the COVID time frame too. It goes back quite some time.
It's a year.
It's been, a year, right? And we initially, we did a lot of work on this, and I think we proved that we acted in good faith by when we got an initial response from them and they asked us to make some changes from their medical health officer. We made a lot of changes to it as best as we thought we could do without having a dialogue going on there. Requested a meeting in person, which they seem to want to have at first, but then completely rejects us. So the message I'm left with out of this is that they're saying that we're not listening and we won't listen to you, completely stonewalling us at this point. So it's where do you go from there when we have meetings with the Minister of Health at UBCM and they ask us, what can we do for you guys? And then we bring something to them and they just won't have any conversation. It's a disappointing situation for sure. So what else can we do at this point?
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Greer, and then I'm going to go on my rant for a few minutes.
I just make the comment that it's probably the local people here that are stonewalling us.
No.
That's for sure. So it won't go any further. They're dug in, and I don't think they're going to make any changes.
These are conversations that our CAO has had with the Ministry of Health in Victoria and locally as well. So partially what you say is accurate. The other part of it is that they're supporting, by the sounds of things, what their local guy is saying. Okay. Let me just say that I'm so very unimpressed with the Ministry of Health's response to this matter regarding discarded needing. I mean, first off, I hear the concerns with the fact, you're going to deter persons from with addictions from getting clean needles, but they haven't proven that fact yet. And I respond back to them that should we be more concerned about the vast majority of people within the city of Parksville, or should we be concerned about the few that are discarding these needles actually very carelessly? The amount of needles being carelessly discarded seems to be increasing significantly on an annual basis. What concerns me is that we're finding almost equal numbers of unused needles as we are used needles out there right now. If you go out, we see them, and you can tell which ones are used and which ones aren't. And this is a direct result of their method of distribution. So-called because that's the way their experts say that this should be done. Their experts haven't brought anything to the table that is turning this around. Every year it's getting worse and worse and worse. The number of needles from the pictures that I've seen from our bylaws officers and from the RCMP is actually significantly higher than it was 3 and 4 years ago. And we've got to stop this. And I don't know how we're going to do it. I agree with what Councillor O'Brien said. You know, do we sit and wait or do we jump on it? What we're going to do is have somebody that's hurt significantly, a kid walking in our park, or somebody walking on a trail, or one of the dogs being dog walked through the trails or whatever, being stabbed by a needle. That's nonsense. We shouldn't have to put up with that when what we're seeing here is the fact that They haven't come to the table with anything that is anywhere near a solution to this problem, besides just walk out there with huge handfuls of needles and virtually say, here you are, folks, go ahead. And then they use a couple of them, and the rest of them they throw down because they don't want to be bothered carrying them around anymore. We have to stop this. I don't know how the CAO is absolutely right. The Ministry of Health is not going to listen to us at this point for whatever reason, but we have to get the media, we need to get everybody, we need to get the citizens of Parksville angry enough to understand that this has got to stop. We can't keep going like this. Every year getting worse and worse and worse. I'll come down off my soapbox now. Anyways, thank you. It's frustrating as hell. So if nobody else has anything else to say, I'd like to call the question for receiving at this point in time. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. 3 readings and final adoptions on the Provincial Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General issued ministerial order under Emergency Program Act as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. Section 9 of the aforementioned order states that despite Section 135(3) of the Community Charter, a council may adopt a bylaw on the same day that the bylaw has been given 3rd reading. So here we are, the Regional Parks and Trails Parcel Amendment Bylaw number 2020, number 1425.5, to amend the Parks and Trail parcel tax rates. I need a mover and a seconder for both recommendations. Moved by Councillor Chandler, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion here? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. With a great deal of reluctance, I'll vote in favor of it. Okay, that's the only one we have. Well, 3 readings and final adoption of, what have I got? Do we have to do it again? Yeah, that's right. Notice of motion. Does anybody on council have a notice of motion? Okay. It says in great big yellow letters here, don't expect any today. So I'm missing the rest of my my stuff. So any new business? I'm going by memory now. Any new business by any Councillor Patterson? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I sit as the liaison for the Vancouver Island Regional Library, so a release was made today, and that from VIRL to have some openings in regards with the library for takeout style library services to online programming and some connectivity, and that's so it's really nice to see some options and everything, because everything was pretty much at a standstill with COVID for the last 2.5 months. So I'm really excited to see some rollout and that to some of the smaller communities as well. So just wanted to put that out there.
Is it my understanding that the library is going to use the side door? Is that the way it is for now, which is kind of nice? Keep people out of the part here. Councillor Fraz?
My thing for new business, I just want to say that with a lot of new businesses opening back up now, it's been great to see people getting out there and supporting their local businesses. There's still a lot more that are coming online, and I think it's a good chance, though, for people this summer to realize the beauty we have right around us in our community. If they're looking for places to go and explore, we got some wonderful spots, and one of them being the Parksville Museum. They're going to be reopening their doors on June 20th. So looking forward to seeing all the things kind of come back to life around here, and excited about what we have for summer. So that's that.
Can I say something?
Of course you can.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want everyone to know that the Community Arts Council, the MAC, will be open on June 18th. So they've been working hard to find ways to make it safe for the public, and they're pretty excited about it. So I hope everybody is able to get there and enjoy. Thank you.
piece by piece, place by place, as we go through the community, isn't it? I mean, it's looking better every week. I'm really happy the number of businesses opened up are looking better all the time. We want to wish everybody well for the upcoming year, and if they need anything to let us know, see if we can help them out. Councillor O'Brien has had some good feedback from the idea of the parking lots, putting the patios out on the parking lot. I think that was a big win, and it was nice. We showed some leadership. We were one of the first communities around that were put that into as a bylaw, and I really like that. And thanks an awful lot for everybody. Having said all that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Greer, second by Councillor Chandler. All those in favor? Opposed? You're opposed? Okay, Councillor Fraz is opposed to adjourning. Thank you.